So how do you think this affects the internal politics of the Senate,
Yes.
On the one hand, and then the politics between the executive arm of government and the Senate, I beg your pardon, the legislature on the other hand?
Well, let's concentrate on the Senate, not the legislature, because if you ask me, I give the House of Rep above average marks. They've been comporting themselves very well and they've been attentive to their own primary duties. The friction has always been between the Senate and the executive arms. And we all know that the executive arm is having some running battle with the president of the Senate. And the president of the Senate has very, very able horsemen who are also ready to take the fight to the executive arm of government. I am not saying what they are doing back, but for the good of all of us, I would want their activities, their actions being more focused towards their own primary duties, that of making laws for the good governance of the country. And if they concentrate on that, they will be much more supportive to us, because it is through laws that we can actually check and not just check and limit the executive arm to its own boundaries, but also to make it work optimally. This sort of distractions for all the time and for my own life, I think we don't need those distractions for now.
So you call this a distraction?
It is, very much so. And my own worry is, why has the executive actually been ignoring them? If the executive is ignoring the Senate in order not to be distracted from the heavy duty of trying to take the country out of recession, I'll say thank you. But if it's about being fearful of actually having punches with the Senate, it is not good for the nation, because, mind you, whatever you do now remains a precedent.
You have a reading that the executive is avoiding the Senate?
I think so.
Well,
there has been so much of a taunting and a provocation that I think it's high time that they actually confront us.
What's the instance?
I think instance, for an example, how would you say you, as the lawmaker, you are not just asking to more or less interface with an authority who is about to implement a policy, good or bad. You understand? No matter how bad the policy of the customs is, it is within their own purview. And in that sense, in response to the merit or otherwise of the policy of the Senate, of the customs, the Senate is no better and is in no better a position than you and I. So the law says, if a policymaker goes beyond his boundaries, beyond his purview, and tries to execute an unlawful policy, it is for the court to define that.
Did they try to execute? What they did was invite the customs boss to explain it.
To me is bullying. Irrespective of, no matter what language you put it, it's bullying. You are calling him not just to appear, you say, we are in for God's sake.
But people will say it's in their purview. I mean, if he comes to come and defend the policy, if, for instance, say, if there is some outcry, for instance, and people are a little worried as to how this policy is going to play out, doesn't the Senate have a duty to defend, the interest of the Nigerian people?
Well, it does by making the appropriate law. They can respond appropriately.
But they have, don't they have oversight functions over,
no, the oversight
over the
functions?
customs?
You see, the oversight functions are defined and limited by the Constitution. If you take a look at Section 88 and 89 of the Constitution that gives them those oversight functions, you don't just wake up in the morning and call an officer to your place. You only call the officer for a specific purpose to aid what you've already been working on in the Senate.
So quickly, we're going to break now. But quickly, do you think that the Senate Committee on Customs, I think now, which is setting up a committee to probe, is it government revenue leakage?
They can.
Over a period of 10 years.
They can.
Are they within their right?
They can. Because they can do so to expose corruption and to limit wastefulness within the customs.
We'll take a break at this point. We'll come back and explore what is overstepping the bounds a bit further when we come back from this time out. Just stay with us. Mr. Sam Kargbo is still with us. He's a legal practitioner. Just before we went on that break, you were telling us about how you think that the Senate was overstepping its bounds in terms of, oversight functions, and how the executive too has been avoiding the Senate. But quickly, you've also called this committee hearing a distraction.
Yes.
What matters do you think the Senate needs to be visiting now as a matter of urgency?
Well, beyond extending the transparency drive to beyond extending it or bringing it inwards and throwing up a much more transparent data from them to the public. I think we mentioned the issue of their constituency allowances. Let us know what they are and what they've been doing with them. It would help the public to give it a closer relationship with the public. But beyond that, also we're in a recession. And every arm of government needs to put out itself on an emergency gear to help us out of the recession. Doing what they are doing, distracting the executive, does not help the situation.
That's how you perceive
That's the way I put it. It's my own view, and I stand by it, because I know the limit of the oversight functions. They know the limits of the oversight functions. But mind you, I don't know if you know what they call fake luring. There are snakes that use their very beautiful tail to lure their victims, or they call cordial alluring. That's what they are doing. They give the picture through body language to say what we are doing is for the good of the country. But if you ask me, what they are actually doing is to cajole us like the magicians, take us out of the focus and give us the images that they want us to have.
Well, that's what I'm afraid we'll have to wrap up, Mr. Sam Kargbo. I have to thank you very much for coming on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Mr. Sam Kargbo. He is a legal practitioner and also a writer. We will take another moment. I think we're wrapping up right now on Sunrise Daily. And we have to thank you very much, our viewers, for watching. That will be all from Abuja here. Thank you. I'm Maukwe Ogun. It's back to you now in Lagos, Chamberlain and Gimba.
Well, yes, indeed. We've got this email from Chinedu Osamo from Delta. He says, he's speaking about the developments in the Senate. He says, I believe that in Nigeria, there must be punishment for false information. If the VC of Abu Said, Senator Melaye, is a graduate of the school, then whoever gave out the false info should be made to answer questions. Also, we must distinguish the person/office of the Senate President from the administration and bureaucracy of the National Assembly, largely under the care of career civil servants. By all means, whoever is culpable, irrespective of status. But we must know that slander and libel are punishable crimes. On Magu, he says his take is that the presidency needs to clean its house. The DSS insists on his report, leaves much to be desired. The president cleared Magu cannot stand because the president cannot combine executive, judiciary, and legislative powers.
Oh, we'll have another email here from Uzodim Chinagorom, and he says, I live with the stigma about the police, never to trust and even communicate with the Nigerian police force, unless convinced that something has drastically changed in their attitude. Returning to Nigeria after a long while, two striking incidents occurred to me that have shaped my opinion. The first was in 1991 at Ijesha, where he said that armed robbers were attacking their neighbors, and they picked the call, having one of their neighbors called in to the police. But a week later, that particular neighbor who called in, divulging his information, was shot in the mouth. A few weeks later, that's another incident happened, and where the police could not get across to them as quickly as possible, and he wants his perception changed.
Okay. I'm Francis O. We get your mail, but we don't know where you're writing from. Well, that's the show today. Thank you all for watching. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Thanks for watching. I'm Gimba Omar.